on PST side of the world, it's 1 o'clock apparently. My watch says 2, but it is definitely 1 o'clock. Welcome everybody to December 9th, Sustainable Living of CSLAC. And I know that Paris is taking attendance for Robin, who is online with us today. And thank everybody for being online and those of us that are here today. Now that I've called to order, traditional lands, acknowledge and respect Indigenous peoples within the traditional lands. We are meeting today. And first item is the adoption of the agenda. Is there anything further to add to our agenda? Looking at staff, seeing none from the floor. Can I get a motion to approve? As Director Jackman, second Director Tierney. All in favor? Thank you very much.
Chair, on privilege, can you do a sound check, please?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Thank you. And receipt of the minutes. Is there anything in the minutes that Director Main?
Yes, in discussion at that last meeting, we discussed the need to have a broader discussion about CSLAC with the entire board. And there was a direction to staff, which is not reflected in the minutes, to try to schedule a board workshop around that issue.
I'd comment on that.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Procedurally, we don't necessarily know direction of staff in the board minutes. The actual workshop to see what's occurring with sustainability is difficult to do in a workshop because you'd be moving the business of the board forward. So there needs to be a bigger conversation between CSLAC staff and Stuart around the best method to do that. We'd be really limited on a workshop because you can't move the business forward. So procedurally, minutes don't reflect direction of staff. And then I did just ask Stuart about this, and he indicated that the workshop framework doesn't give us a lot of viability in terms of what do we do moving forward.
Okay, Paris, you want to comment?
Thank you very much, through the chair. So we did bring forward further options. So the first item on the agenda does provide a little bit more space for discussion. And so if there's a direction that comes from that, from the committee as well, that can be, there's an option. It is on the agenda.
Thank you.
Director Main, are you satisfied with the minutes?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And we don't vote those through, do we?
No, they're actually approved at the board last month or last time we had them.
All right, thank you for that. First item on today, it's 6.1. And there's no motion, it'll be for information. Sustainability service projects and areas of activity. I presume it's Paris.
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, so just providing high level summary of what's happened in the last few months. And speaking of the highlights, highlights from October, November, and that should say December. So December's meetings highlights include the financial projections and some possible scenarios for consideration. The 2026 budget, not for approval, but for review. As well on the agenda are the Spokane Lake and River Partnership Terms of Reference, and then also some requests for funding and update from the Rural Mobility Working Group, or the Regional Mobility Working Group, the Rural Mobility Community Advisory Committee. Thank you very much.
Okay, looking around the room, Director Watson.
Yeah, thanks. And I do apologize through the chair staff if you've already told me this. Where does REAP land now, and what is our involvement? We had requested an update on REAP at some point. Does that go to the board now?
Thank you. Through the chair.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, so REAP does, because as part of, it's held within the Senior Energy Specialist portfolio, and she reports to the board. And we do anticipate an update in January. So there should be a full presentation and report, and then to the board at that time.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Looking to anybody online? Anybody else here wish to comment on 6.1 with Paris? I'm seeing none. Moving on to old business 7.1. This is our financial projections and scenario considerations. And who will speak to that? Paris, it looks your name's on the list.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair. So this is a follow-up to the interviews that were conducted in June of CSLAC members with Sangeeta and myself. And we provided some level of update in the October meeting, and then following that discussion, we wanted to provide slightly more robust considerations for the committee. And so we provide both some understanding of the taxation changes with both Kay, who has withdrawn, and then E and J, who are anticipated to withdraw in 2027, and then also possible scenarios for consideration, being 1, to disband CSLAC, 2, retain CSLAC and reduce the workload, or 3, absorb into general administration, or 4, cancel all work. And so these are just provided for information for CSLAC in anticipation of consideration over the course of 2026.
Okay, Director Jackman.
Yes, thanks. So I kind of see a little different option that I wanted to float, a different approach. And I have to go back to Jim Gustafson telling us that we were asking to do things that weren't part of the service. Instead of using the feasibility study to venture into somewhere that was not part of any of our services or our core functions, he kept asking something to just happen. And so the conversation part was that you do a feasibility study, you tap into feasibility study money, it's supposed to be for the purpose of developing a service. But we didn't want to develop services, we wanted to develop ideas and momentum, start something and have it pushed elsewhere maybe, but just to be able to start the conversation, have a mechanism. So he came up with, well, we could call something a sustainability service, funded, and we're not tapping into our feasibility where the end result is a regional district service. We're just tapping into our energy and ideas, putting it out to wherever it went. So the concept I'd like people to think about is, if we keep the sustainability service, because I think it's got the right intention, it's not a feasibility thing to create a service, it's looking at the feasibility of creating momentum. Then the question is, who would participate and how would it be funded? So some of the stuff we're looking at here today, I think easily fits into S100 general admin. So we could decide that today or at any point in time that, yeah, the board will vote on their budget as this being part of the S100 budget. These aren't big components of work. These are the small $10,000, $20,000 leverages that I think if you look at Alex's one report, it's leveraging $300,000 or $200,000. So we could fund through S100 things that are of common interest, and we're not worried about then this or that participant are in. The other way we could fund this S105 is the way we did years ago, and some of us funded through the hospital board at the time, work we funded through our community development. We said, as sure board directors, we want to learn about something, develop something, go somewhere and get input. So this was for emergency services, health services, distance travel. We used all the college as a resource. So we each threw in $5,000. We did something. We could do that through S105. We could say, well, we have a cluster of 3 or 4 directors that want to learn about something, want to not develop a service, want to advance an idea. And so those directors could say, through any time through the year, we want to pool some money and do something. And now it's all 20 of us again. It's almost like an allocation service. We still call it S105, but it is funded in part, a little bit of core funding through S100. It's funded specifically for S100 applicable projects, which are for regional district benefit as a whole. That's where LGCAP money sits right now. And it's funded by participant interest. The participants, us, come together in clusters and say, we would like to advance this. And we provide the seed money through development services. So we would no longer worry and struggle who's paying for this and who's benefiting. It's a whole different way to approach it. And I'll kind of leave it there. But I think it's a workable model. I don't think we have to fund a service through requisition. I think we can fund a service through creativity, like we do for all our other application services.
Okay, so another option to consider in terms of our scenarios, Director Watson.
Yeah, thank you. So interesting idea. I think there's a couple different things here. First of all, in the report, when we talk about options to move forward or scenarios for consideration, we tend to, the way I read this was you had financial context, which kind of separated the two, requisition, a service, and the committee. Whereas the scenarios for consideration tend to, as I read it, seem to talk about the committee. So I'm going to keep those separate for a minute. Right off the bat, we can't continue as is. We know that that's not going to be sustainable. So clearly we need to change. That's a known. What we change to in the format in which we do that, we know a workshop's going to be quite limiting to doing so. So I would just say that staff needs to get creative post this feedback with administration around the best way to do that. In terms of my own personal thoughts around it, in all honesty, when we get to the budget, I'm going to ask how much is staff time actually S105 only, because I think I'd like to see us flip the ratio currently where most staff is 0.25 in general admin, it's 0.75 in sustainability. You flip that. And for me, I've kind of dealt with the issue. So there could be a simple way of actually being more true to the actual, where is this staff work being done, which is predominantly in general admin projects. So that would be one simple, probably too simple solution that needs more consideration, but I'll ask that at budget. I do think it's important that, and Mayor Hewitt and I recently met with the local climate change group, and I wanted to be really clear with them that there's a good chance that as we're seeing more and more areas leaving the service, that D would do the same, because it's just not, it's an equity issue. It's not a principle or we don't want to do this work issue. So I want to make sure that committee knew that if you see D or Caslo saying, okay, we're out, it's not because sustainability isn't important, it's that we have a governance issue. So with that in mind, I think what we need to do is really be clear about what are these projects and where are they best fitting. And honestly, everything we're doing is regional in mind, even to the GOAT watershed, which is, you know, geographically GOAT, but it's the template for any other watershed work we do. Quartz Creek asset management, predominantly in Weimar, but asset management, which we started in Silverton, there were templates for these other things. So I think in my simple mind, without asking the board, I would be move it to general admin. We know we can't just do that. And even though some of the motions to move these projects to general admin went through and they're there, that's great. Maybe we'll do that with the budget consideration when we get there. I do think there needs to be a broader conversation with the board around what are we doing with sustainability, and not just what's currently on the work plan, but what's our longer term look at these. Because, you know, I think of Nelson and they have a whole sustainability team that's doing really incredible things. How do we buffer with those? So I think there's an opportunity for a broader conversation. The format we use to do that, I will rely on you guys to find the best way. I forgot workshops. We can't move the business of the board along, so it's quite limiting. Yeah, so I think that's what I'll say at this time. In the meantime, I think until we get there, I would be in favor of reducing our committee meetings to reflect the fact that I believe our budget's going to say we're not initiating anything new and we just need check-ins.
Okay.
I believe.
Thank you for that. I believe Sangeeta has a question or comment.
Through the chair, I think Director Watson answered it, and I appreciate the feedback. The question was, would we look at work plan items, shifting them to S100? And I think you pretty much said that that's what would shift the allocation of staff time. So that was the clarification I wanted. And I do appreciate the comments from Director Jackman, because it's something I've thought of too as well. So that's a good suggestion.
I'm not sure, did you guys catch the chat?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. And so I have Graham, Davidoff, and then back to Jackman and Maine. Director Graham.
Thank you. So I'm just looking for some quick clarification questions. I don't have the history that some of you have. So the first question is, what service was CSLAC before it was split out into CSLAC? Was it all in S100?
Oh.
Sorry, I missed that through the chair. Director Graham?
Sorry, was it all in S100 before it was split out into S105? Like what's the history of this service? Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
So yes, sorry, Director Graham, was talking, so we didn't pick up what your question was. The history of this service, because when I first joined the regional district, the service had been created, and Director Jackman already provided some of that history. It was created because there were projects that were landing in S100 that weren't transparent to the board as to who they were benefiting, how they were being funded, and all of that, and staff time being allocated to them. So the decision was, and also they wanted to look at sustainability initiatives. So the decision was to create this service to make it more transparent of what those projects are that used to land in S100, be buried in that big budget, were funded through various grants or not, and then staff time being allocated. So that was the intention, is to be more transparent about our sustainability initiatives.
Director
Okay,
Graham,
Yeah,
Further?
thank you. So I heard S100, it came from S100. I have another question is, the LG cap money that the regional district gets, all of it, like, is that money just for rural areas or is it for the entire regional district? And I'm sorry, you guys may know all of this, but I just want some clarity in my own brain.
Go ahead.
Yes, through the chair, that funding is for the rural areas, but it's given to electoral areas. The municipalities get their own share of LGCAP funding. So that is for regional district services, so resource recovery and things like that, and for rural areas.
I believe part of that's contribution allocation as well. Isn't that correct? I'm looking at Director Jackman because he's ready to say something.
Well, there is a clear.
Go ahead.
So if you look at what we're allocating through LG Cap this year, municipalities do get their own amounts. However, as a regional district, you'll see we're funding NDCC, we're funding resource recovery that includes municipalities. It's not allocated out to rural areas. It's allocated to RDCK services, which can include municipalities.
Okay, and did you want to add to that?
Yeah,
Director Jackman?
because electoral area directors and electoral areas have no corporate authority. So the money comes to the party as a whole, our LG cap. There's no such thing as an area A budget. They're only budgeted through party services. I understand our LG cap is a S100 allocation. Anybody can tap into it. It's whoever comes up with the ideas.
Okay, Director Graham, did you have anything further?
Just one final question, and this is about the report. And this would be on option 3, where it says absorb into general administration, but then it says risks. RAC does not include municipal members, Caslo and Silverton. But if you were absorbing into general administration, doesn't that mean S100? And wouldn't that be everyone?
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, so it should have said general administration or RAP. And so the possibility was to absorb into another service, being either general admin or rural affairs.
Thank you.
Okay, David Off, Jackman, and then Maine.
Yeah, I read all the reports and was here when this all started. I guess what I need to know, and I need to, I guess, staff to do some work on this. Are we the only RD with a separate kind of a CSLAC like this? Or is this the only service in the province where we actually have created this service? Is this, and what models are being used in other RDs? And I'd like to see what's working best, because the way we're going with, more and more partners pulling out, basically CSLAC is becoming unsustainable, and that's ironic, right? So the key thing is that I really would like to see, before making a decision, what models exist out there, what's working. And if we tried something that no one else is doing, I need to know that, so that I could make an informed, have an informed vote with respect to looking at any options. I know how it worked before CSLAC was formed, but but the key thing is that something that staff could do for us through the chair?
Thank you for that, Paris, please.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, we have done that work to some degree. So 3 or 4 years ago, I presented to the Climate Council on this question specifically because there was a request from several of the members, Climate Caucus rather, not the Climate Council, wanting to know how to do the work that we were able to do. And so since then, I've just paid attention to it, and it is relatively rare. I think there's a few other examples of services, dedicated services, but it is relatively rare to have a dedicated service for sustainability and to have this dedicated, as Director Jackman, time and energy for exploration of ideas. There are other ways that different local governments get around the issue of how to collect the funds and then allocate and do the work. And some work better than what we've done, and some don't work as well as what we've done. So there's different advantages and disadvantages.
Supplemental, David Ock?
Yeah, could we get a report on that? I think we all need to see that because I'd like to see the work continue, the necessary work continue. I'm not stuck to a particular service or model. I'm willing to look at anything that helps us get the work done and as efficiently as possible. So that's kind of where I'm leaning. And if staff could do a report for us, that would be really helpful. So is that possible? And what would the timeline be for such a report through the?
So would it be clear you're after a report on options or models?
Yeah.
That could be complementary, something that we ought to be looking at further as well. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, that could continue the work that we've identified we need to do as municipalities are doing.
And I'm looking around the room for anybody with a frown. Don't see any. And Paris, can you answer that, the timeline question?
Thank you. Well, perhaps we could also roll it into Director Watson's request to think creatively about how we have this more fulsome conversation, and that the presentation or that information could be included of what other, how this shapes out in other models. But also in terms of timeline, I wouldn't be able to respond formally to this question until June or August of next year.
Any comment on that, David Ock?
Yeah, I don't understand if we've done this work, why it would take that long through the chair.
Oh, I'm
So, Amice,
Yes.
through the chair, Paris will be away for 3 months
Okay,
approximately. And so that's why, and we'll talk about that later on in the meeting as well.
okay, so,
You can put me in, but yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I think the work needs to get done as soon as possible, so is Paris the only one that can do the work then?
Yeah, through the chair, yes.
That's responsive staff.
She's the only one allocated to this service as a staff person.
Okay, we will contemplate that. Jackman, Maine, and then Tom.
Yeah,
No.
thanks for the second time. I think the question was raised, what would the committee look like? And in my thinking, if we create a model based on similar to an allocation service, it would then become a committee of the whole, essentially. And you would only attend the session if you're one of a cluster who had a project or an idea to put forward, where we had the time and inclination to go to that particular meeting as a committee of the whole. And there's nothing wrong, because once you vote up to 20 people, you don't want people spending more money on stipends and travel and this and that than the actual service is funded for. So it could be similar to Crescent Valley Services Committee where you're not paid. It could be something of a committee of the whole. We can find out if there's a legal feedback where there's other, similar meetings. And everybody's welcome, as they see agenda topics of interest to them, to come and provide their input. If not that interested, you just read the meetings, read the minutes of the meeting later.
Director Maine.
Yeah, I'd like to make a few comments. I recognize that the taxation for CSLAC is becoming unsustainable to the individual members because the membership has decreased so much, but the scope of the projects has not. I would like for rural directors to understand that the role of a municipal director is not just to represent their municipality, but is to make decisions based on the best good for the regional district. So I'm not here to say this is what Silverton needs and that's all there is to it. I'm here to say this is what it looks like from Silverton, but I will participate in making a decision on whatever it is that is to the benefit of the regional district. So it's kind of a schizophrenic little job. The model that Director Jackman is talking about, sort of as an allocation service, the rural directors have a pot of money in their back pocket that they can just reach in and say, I'll put $5,000 to that. Municipalities do not. We have a budgeting process that moves forward. We have grants and allocation policies that don't support that kind of spontaneous, that's a great idea, let's do it. And I know I have like a mayor and 3 other directors to convince of the efficacy of whatever it is. So it's like, the timeline gets farther and farther out there and way less spontaneous. My concerns for CSLAC, I know it's going to change. I know ultimately it's going to be rolled into S100. But where and how do we initiate projects? Where and how do we initiate things that need research looking into? Where and how do we decide these things? Where do they come from? Who has responsibility for bringing them? Who has the time to bring them? So we need to pay attention to what we're going to do with all of the things that we've talked about in CSLAC that are great, great projects, great things to look into. The Goat River watershed work. What would that have looked like just coming to S100 or to RAC, and would it have the same kind of efficacy to the group as a whole and participation of the group as a whole, contributing financially and intellectually to the process that led to that study? How are we going to do that work? Are we going to do that work? I think we'd be much poorer for not doing that work. I think it's really important work to do. And I like Director Davidoff's request for, a scan of the other models that are out there. And again, I say the timeline. Things they take more and more and more time as CSLAC itself gets less and less focused. And I think we have some real immediate decisions to make because it's going to cost the members so much more this year because there should be work of us. And I know that Silverton is going to freak out at the amount of lift and taxation for this service that we're going to feel. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. I'm sure everybody else is thinking about these things. There may be some other perceptions and perspectives as well. So thank you for the opportunity to say
Thank you, Director Main. Director Newell and Weatherhead
You had me on the line.
and Papa and Watson.
Yeah. Oh, and sorry, you had just
No. I had what? Sorry.
I want to check connection. We keep losing Cheryl, so just don't know if we've actually lost her.
I'm not online and I don't know. Cheryl, are you okay there with us?
Sorry, my headphones died and it's screwing my connection up. So now I've got it on like audio coming out of my iPad. So I think I'm okay. I didn't realize when my Bluetooth headphones lost connection that it would drop me out of the meeting. So sorry about that. I'm okay now.
No worries. Thank you. Director Newell.
Thank you, and I echo much of, well, I echo everything that Director Main just said. Who isn't, out of the 20, who's not part of this committee besides Nelson and Kay recently? I just forgot who's.
Well, it's the 11 rule plus Silverton and Caslow.
So Nakas isn't,
It's almost not.
That's your question? Did I answer? Can I move on? No,
no, I can't.
go ahead.
Yet. So I want to say that I support this committee. I want to say that when I look at the list of the 120 things that we've done, it's pretty impressive what we collectively have done. I do think that I don't know how you say something respectfully when you think someone's decision was in error. Like I guess they said the project, the committee wasn't working well, so they made a statement. And I make a statement that the committee's working really well. So I guess by assumption, I'm saying I think you made a mistake not staying with the committee or withdrawing. I would like to point out that many of the items that I saw, 120, I saw had were all aligned in one way or another with the RDCK's or the RDCK board's strategic plan. And a number of them really, I felt, supported economic development, which was, it's there, it's one of our things, regional this, and I mean, a highly regional committee, maybe one of our most regional committees. So that's another reason why I do support it. And I think this morning's workshop, as I was reflecting, you know, basically it's saying, how do we become more regional, more effective, more, and then I look at the list of 120 things, and all of them are kind of dovetailing with what this morning's workshop was pointing out. So how does that affect those of us that are now, excuse me, I guess the 13 of us that are left? How do we fund this thing and see that the requisition is going up, excuse me, to looks like 284,000 and fewer of us paying into it. So that dilemma I don't know, but I did want to not remain silent and not acknowledge the work of this committee, and then the way others should be doing it. Other regional districts should be doing this kind of thing. It's like we say, well, are they doing it? Well, if they're not, the implication is, well, then maybe we shouldn't, whereas we should be saying, look at what we're doing and you guys should be doing it. So anyway, this turned from something very calm that I was saying to a bit of a rant, so I apologize for that. But I do support the committee, and I think, as Director Main said, how would any of these things be done if this committee wasn't here? We're just going to do that. So it'll end up just we won't be supporting our communities as much. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Noel. Sangeeta, you wanted to reply?
Yeah, just through the chair, I wanted to say thank you, Director Newell, for acknowledging that there is a link between what we did at the workshop this morning where these guys weren't there, but because through the team, which includes emergency management, community sustainability, and planning, we are talking to each other and we talk to water. We're trying to link these things together and working towards sustainability at the end of the day. Thank you.
All right, Director Weatherhead, then I have Popoff and Watson. Perhaps at that point, we can clarify what we're hearing for direction.
Thank you, through the chair. And I would like to acknowledge that I too have see the importance of this. I think that in the questions that I was asking prior to my predecessor making the motion in the first place and putting the hand over them to then make a decision, that I probably didn't get the right answers, because if I had understood all of this, I would have had a lot more to reflect upon prior to making a decision to leave the service. However, here we are today and others are doing so as well. So, my question is around the RAC committee, just in terms of it not including municipal members. And yet we're saying that this, that this service is for all of regional district services and not just rural only. So, it's kind of saying two different things. RAC, there certainly could be discussions at RAC, and in my logical brain that maybe is wrong, that if it was pertaining to if it was S100, it is that where it's pertaining to municipalities that are impacted, they were certainly welcome to listen in on a RAC committee meeting where we would have those discussions, and we're still going to bring all of this to board as well. I don't want the purpose of using funds to do great things for us regionally. I don't want that purpose to ever get lost, most definitely. And I had various reasons where I was struggling with this. So, does RAC, could those conversations happen at RAC, but it minimizes administrative to hold a committee unto itself, because that's the administrative cost that we were discussing as reducing administrative costs on that. How much reduction in administrative costs is that going to look like if it's the same staff doing all this, the same thing, but it's under one committee, rural affairs? Is there a possibility of that being the cost savings, or would it be that again we have these discussions at the board? Either or, is there a significant cost savings, or is it just going to be the same cost to the regional district overall to function as CSLAC? Sorry, I am not making sense today. I hope.
No, that's fine. So you essentially you're exploring the direction we're going and what it's going to look like for staff to consider
Yes.
when they take away and then come back to us.
Yes.
Correct?
Thank you. It's about functioning is my point. Functioning, seeking things, finding great things for the regional district to take on, still having a designated staff person doing that, but reducing those administrative costs of having a separate committee. What is the reduction in administrative costs? I don't see that in the last year.
Okay, that's something that can be explored. I don't think there's an answer to that at this moment. I will go, thank you, or anything further? Okay, Director Popov, and then Watson, and then we'll attempt to wrap.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's always nice to be almost second last on different issues because I hear different perspectives from other directors, but to find out where we're going to go, we've got to go back to find out where we came from. And I believe Director Jackman covered most of it, but I was there when we started this community sustainability service. And one of the reasons that we started was it did not involve the whole general admin. They were municipalities that felt that what we were going to be discussing only was mostly rural. So we established a service to give the opportunity for municipalities to participate in the service. It's mostly rural directors that started the service, participated in it. But then we had municipalities like Silverton, Caslow, Salmo that wanted to participate in the service also. So it does not really fit in general admin because general admin covers all the municipalities and all the rural areas. So this is why the service got established, so we can do the one-offs that don't belong in general admin and don't really belong in rural affairs. That's how we started the service, and it worked quite well. We brought projects that benefit some of the municipalities and benefit some of the rural areas, and actually some of the municipalities that did not belong into the service got benefits as a result of that. So this is where we came from. Where we go, take a look who's left there. The only municipality that's left there is Caslow. All the other ones are withdrawing, and some rural areas are withdrawing. So where does this service belong? In general admin? Well, that's where we came from. We figured at that time it didn't belong there. Does it belong in rural affairs? Well, we've got one municipality that still wants to stay in the service. So how can we make this work? Now, this service was very valuable to everybody that participated in it. Although some areas didn't get looked at or whatever, I know where I'm going to go with my service, and what I want out of there is to rural affairs. I'm a rural director, but I have 3 municipalities that are in my area, and that would be affected by what I want to do. So yeah, and I always like to listen to Director Newell Pondercake, and he's very good at that. Anyways, it's a discussion that has to go further. Where do we go? And Director Davido's question is, are there other regional districts doing this? There is possibly. At that time, we could not find any other regional district that was doing that, or maybe there was some that we did not look hard enough. But it is a valuable service that provides, especially the rural directors, that, like you take a look at, the Goat River watershed that we're doing. You take a look at, Weimar, what we're doing there. You take a look at the Kootenay Lake Partnership, what's happening there. You take a look at the Slocan Lake and River Partnership, what's happening there. So there is stuff that we're doing that's very valuable, and I hate to see this service fold or go away. We have to think about, where are we going to house this service if not by itself? That's my spiel on this, and I think my memory is still pretty good. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Popoff. Director Watson.
Okay, a few things. I think Director Weatherford asked about what we would save if we shut this committee down. It'd be $17,000 as our administration on this committee. I have a couple of ideas listening to folks that I want to suggest. First, I meant to note that the survey results were not included. I know we received it at a different meeting, but it does fragment the conversation a bit. Like, I kept wanting to go back to the survey results. So moving forward, whatever format in which we come back to this conversation, we need those survey results from the directors who were involved. What Director Davidoff is asking for, which is in terms essentially like a lit review on what other RDs are doing, with the caveat that when we've done RD comparisons for a financial or staffing kind of overview, we are extremely different everywhere. So it's hard to do an apples to apples. So just have some consideration around, if you're comparing to, like we do with planning, an RD that's this big compared to this big, we need to have that as part of the consideration. I do think we need to give ourselves a year to work through this. I don't think we're going to figure this out today. It's definitely not a motion we're making today. We're playing around with what this might look like. We have lost K, J, someone else gave notice recently, Silverton, E. So we have 4 areas coming out. And again, it goes back to that the disparity in requisition is now that much more than it was when we only had those areas and not the full board. So we've only exacerbated the issues we had at that time. I'm not saying anyone shouldn't have done that. You do what you do. But what I do think would be a novel idea, 2 things. One is, and again, I'll mention this at budget, the current ratio for staffing is that 0.25 goes under general admin, 0.75 goes under sustainability. I'm going to propose we flip that, given that what's actually in sustainability is predominantly general admin action. So when we get to that budget, that will be one way of addressing the requisition issue for this year. The other thing I want to propose, and again, this would go to a full conversation, this is just a suggestion to consider, is when we did our climate action plan, and when you look at what's currently in the list of what we're doing, everything on that list actually has a service. If you're talking transit, it goes to transit. If you're talking resource recovery, it goes to resource recovery. If you're talking planning, it goes to planning. So every service already has a committee, and you just embed the sustainability actions within that committee instead of creating a separate one. That the primary issue that we have, and we have it with LGCAP right now, where you have LGCAP motion at the board table or a report. But when you look through that, there's 4 different committees where those considerations are being made for what are we doing with this funding. This committee by default has actually siloed many of our conversations where Nelson has no idea what we're doing. Not Nelson, the person, Nelson, the town. Or, you know, Nakas, when I've mentioned different things to Vice Chair McLaren Co. He doesn't know what we're doing because they're not like, by all means, come to our committee meetings, but who goes to extra committee meetings? They don't need to. So in a way, we need to actually embed the work within the service that is actually doing that work and then actually allocate those staff hours to that work. So Paris is actually working across several departments. She's working with water, she's working with planning, she's working with emergency services. So that's how we should structure the work we're doing, is that rural affairs, we talk about the planning considerations. At transit, which we've been saying all along, but we know the bylaw is quite limiting, that's where we talk about the rural mobility work that we're doing. And then it's directly connected to transit. Resource recovery, we're talking about organics there, we're talking about all those things. Resource recovery is kind of already doing it. So that would be, when we get to the what are we actually doing, that would be the one I'm interested in. I think this committee, because you can pull out of it and say, I don't want to be taxed for that. It's a great benefit for those that do. Again, you're smart. I get it. I'm not saying you did anything wrong. Why not? You're still getting the benefit, whether it's in your area or not. So if it's tied to the service actually doing the work and where the work needs to be embedded so that it's connected, we're actually connecting more than we currently are in this format. So that would be my recommendation. And food's covered. By the way, I just want to say we covered food. It's great. The Food Policy Council, KBFA, I really want to say how great it is that we do the work we do with them. And I feel like that if we continue that, we're doing it. We don't need to add that as an item to address.
Chair, could I beg for the third time?
Yes, you may.
I just heard the word allocate.
Yeah.
That's my thinking. If we lose the service, we lose the model where we're able to allocate energy and not break the rules. We're not supposed to be using feasibility study money if we're not creating a service. We're not supposed to be using general admin without specific board permission, which is really a budgetary thing, unless it is general. We're trying to allocate pockets of money. That's why I still want you to think about allocation. I do understand Director Means' concern about where the money comes from. I picked on community development. We raise across without Nelson and Castlegar, because they got their special deal from the province on their built grants, community development money. That's where this payment in lieu of taxes, if you don't pay taxes for provincial infrastructure. We raised between us, without Nelson and Castlegar, 1.25 million. Of that, about $1 million is held in rural. Of that is 153,000 at each of DEHJK. There's 44,000 of the last for ABC, FGI, and Cusp, Preston, Salmon, Casco. And yes, there's only 17,000 and change for Spokane, Silverton, and New Denver. But if you took your 1,400 from Silverton paid last year into S105, that's only 8% of your community development allocation. So I had these words in my mind days ago. Each municipality has to have the discipline to hold a bit of money for the creative process. I can't imagine Area H Director expecting Silverton to match dollar for dollar on a joint initiative that's clustered, that is meaningful, that we have the talent to pursue an idea. But we'll lose the talent if we don't hold the service to allocate that little bit of money to, and then energize everybody and say, okay, you have seed money to work on this idea. So in my mind, it's either gone, and we will argue endlessly over S100 budget time, or we create it under the guise of an allocation service, however it has to be, with minimal seed money, S100 probably, because we've all talked about the commonality of some of these projects, common benefit, and then contribution. So there's a discipline required. I know some villages and towns like to give all their money away at the beginning of the year one shot, then they're not bothered by requests all year. I'm gonna say too bad. Either hold some money and have a little discipline for the creative ideas that come up, or you're not a player that year. But I think we can make it work. As Director Watson just said, by allocating our energy and money. So we need corporate admin to tell us whether or not that's a legitimate model.
All right, thank you.
Start there.
I want to have Sangeeta respond, but also can we wrap up what we heard? And so then we touch on those key points, and then we have some sort of a timeline that we can throw with that as well. And to Director Davidoff, we've got a resource challenge. But let's just hear what staff has heard. We've had quite a robust conversation here today. Go ahead.
Yeah, just brief comment. Asking our municipalities to have discipline would mean that we have, at the board, there needs to be a collective understanding of what our vision is. And we have that in our strategic plan. You know, I mentioned this earlier today when we were doing the work with our workshop on regional growth strategy. In a regional growth strategy, you have a common vision that the whole board works towards. You know, I'm not saying that that's what you need, but that vision is what we need before that, you know, mandate is within a municipality's budgeting process.
Okay. Paris, what did you hear?
Thank you.
What is your takeaway?
Lots. I really appreciate all the discussion and agree this was very much intended as a prompt for conversation for consideration over the next year. No decisions need to be made until next fall. And so, yes, I heard lots. I would be amiss to try and summarize it, I think, at this time. But I really appreciate all the ideas and suggestions and requests and hear that we need to support another level of process, further consider all the ideas that have been shared this morning. So thank you for this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. So just to touch on, just want to make sure that our scenarios for consideration make it back. I heard that our survey results ought to make it back for our next gathering. We heard a little bit about models and model structures.
Yeah.
That should make it back as well. I don't know if I've missed anything, but certainly if I have, I know that you took tons of notes.
Yeah.
So, great.
Yeah, great question. Thank you.
So, Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
yeah, I just sent something out to all of you, comparing all RDs in the province and basically where the RRD stands. It's a very rudimentary document, but at least it gives us a snapshot that's maybe helpful to some. I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
All right. Go ahead, Teresa.
I just, through the chairs, I think when I look back on, my 3 years, with CSLAC, and those that have followed me in, two of the areas that have followed, I think what would have really been helpful at the very beginning is for those of us who didn't have the history, and all I would have is my predecessor telling me what his views were, that may not have been helpful. But that if we had received some kind of broader understanding of the history, I think that would have been super helpful to the new directors of what the purpose of CSLAC really was and how it came to be, that we would have had a different scope. I believe I would have had a different scope, rather than just jumping in where it was at then and really struggling to see how this was really working overall. I think that would have been just my 2 bits worth.
Thank you for that. And just a reminder to everybody that we did reshape the terms of reference. And I'm just looking at my notes back in August. So we had put some thought into what our terms of reference ought to be looking like. So just a reminder that that document is always there for our reflection as well. So, okay. Oh, what? Okay, well, I'm trying to move on. So I had given lots of time, but I will be happy to take Director Hanegraaff and Director, sorry.
Up with this.
Just give me a second. Review it. Thank you. And then I do want to move on, but Director Hanegraaff, please.
You know what? Go ahead, move on then. It's fine.
Okay, Director Hewitt.
Through the chair, just having listened, I still have concerns. I probably we would have had a letter on the agenda had our staffing not been as it is at the village. because I'm one of the ones who really feels that I'm not sure whether there's value for our municipality being a participant in the service, and the comments about understanding the history, making a difference as to whether we continue. I think the membership of the committee as it exists is the one who has to make the decision, regardless of what's happened in the past. The past is the past. There's been a huge change in the membership, and therefore the priorities of the membership. So what was important 10 years ago, or whenever it was first formed, the world has evolved. The climate has evolved. Yeah, I actually like the idea that, both what Director Jackman has floated and what Director Watson has indicated that she will propose for budget. Because the costs are, for the village of Castle, looking at least doubling in the next 2 years. It's just, everybody is budget conscious, and it's been stated we're gonna be the last municipality that's involved, and for the benefit that I view that we get out of it, that isn't a common benefit for the entire regional district, for us to continue, and any of the other participants to continue to pay when everybody else gets the benefit, but fewer and fewer of us are paying into the service. I do appreciate the work that's been done. The staff have been really great at doing the projects that have been brought forward to the committee, but I think there's got to be a different way for it to be done that's more equitable to everybody.
Okay, thank you. Director Hennigrath, did you want to opt in?
No, I said go ahead and I meant it.
All right, thank you. We're gonna move on to 7.2, and that's our 2025-6 budget review. There's a number of documents there. You're gonna start presumably with the presentation. We'll go through that, and then I'll have a question on the remaining documents. Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair. So yes, we have just a few slides.
Thank you.
Oh, maybe just go through the slides. We have a few slides to share with you that provide a high-level summary of the changes for this budget, or an update on this budget. As mentioned earlier in the update, this isn't a budget for approval, it's just a budget for your information. The approval will come later later in the budgetary process. What we are requesting today, if there's support from the committee, is to formally remove the $25,000 grant from the budget. It's not included in the budget. There was discussion at the previous meeting not to include it. And so we've removed it, but just that we need formal direction to do that. So I'll walk you through the slides. Thank you very much, Alex. And so if we go to the first slide, so we'll provide the draft budget, and then we'll also break that down by project, and also provide some highlights of the changes. Next slide, please. So looking at a comparison between 2025 and 2026, we see that our operational budget is significantly less. Largely that's due to the change in project grants that have been received. We do see an increase in the next line in requisition of $93,670, and I can provide an explanation for where that difference comes from in further slides. We do see a slight increase in salary and benefit expenses, and that's part of that is reflected in the requisition increase as well. As noted in line 4, we haven't included the $25,000 grant, as we also didn't include it last year, and we're requesting a direction to do that. And then of note is LGCAP, and so we had some funding in there from LGCAP last year, and we have a little bit of funding, or 6,800 funding from LGCAP that's going to the Watershed Governance Initiative GIS project. Moving to the next slide. Here we provided a breakdown by project, and as Chair Vandenberg noted, we also have the budget included as an Excel sheet as well as an attachment, so there's further details there as well. The requisition is currently at 284,587, and then so that's within community sustainability. And then we also see the breakdown for Kootenay Lake Partnership. There's additional grants that are being carried over from this year to next year. We see the Slocum Lake in Partnership. There's a $1,658 that's being carried over, and with the Yakanuki grant, there's some grants that we're receiving next year that are the remaining outstanding of this year's grants. That's the $7,500, and then there's a $20,000 grant that we've received confirmation on for the community to community. We mentioned the salaries and budgets, the director's stipends. This is what Director Watson was noting earlier. That's associated with some of the administration costs. And then also some contracted services related to KLP, the Kootenay Lake Partnership, related to the Slocum Lake in Partnership, and related to some of the work under all the work under the Yakanuki Partnership for the Goat River Watershed Sustainability Plan. And then the last on the last line there is the 42,000, and that's just a collective cost of all the common costs related to Service 105. And then on the next slide.
Any questions on that particular slide? Director Jackman?
Yeah, I had one because, you show, prior year carryover of the deficit, 31,600. On the other sheets, of course, because it includes grants, it has an appearance of having a prior year surplus of 78,800. So this is what we need to line items for this always when you show up your budget. But what generated the 31,600 deficit?
Thank you, and that's also noted on the second page as well as some of those difference in costs for this particular budget. So the 31,000, what we understand is that there's been an anomaly from year to year, and Director Watson would like to be on the speakers list. There's been an anomaly of year to year, and you referenced it last time, Director Jackman, where we've anticipated that there's been a surplus, and there hasn't actually been a surplus, and so we've ended up in the final years with a deficit. This year, we're actually we're trying to clear that up before the beginning of the years, and so we're noting the deficit, the operational deficit, clearing that up, and then coming into the year at a balanced budget.
So supplemental. I mean, this is where it's critical, and somehow it can give as to always have this broken out for us in the templates that we call a carryover committed work that wasn't completed, grant funded, whatever. Something on one line that is absolutely not the same as a appearance of a surplus, because we know if you add up all the little numbers like the admin, it costs $240,000 to run the service. If we had no grants and no projects, staff deliver the projects. That's where we need those two line items separate. But if we caught up 100%, great.
And that's thank you. And so we did try to specify that, and it is good to differentiate because when we look at the total, it does look like it's a surplus. And as you noted, so there's a prior year operational deficit, and then the surplus that we're carrying over is related to grant funds. So that prior year deficit is attached to requisition and does make up a part of that that difference that we mentioned on the first slide, the 93,000. If we go to the next slide, we can actually speak more explicitly to all the difference.
Do you want to speak to this one?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Director Watson.
So thanks, Alex. I think you're controlling that. So I just wanted to clarify. So when I look at this chart, which is really great, thank you. It looks like requisition is completely tied to staff salaries, benefits, the committee, and that all the work we're doing is actually grant funded at this time. So my first question is just to clarify, we used to do a $10,000 commitment to Kootenay Lake Partnership. Are we not doing that? The funds that are noted here are all grant?
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, no, we stopped doing that a few years ago, yes.
Okay. To do related to the slides, I think that was it. I have more, but on that slide, it's helpful to see requisition as predominantly operating the service and staff time. I'm not discounting that.
All right, next slide.
Thank you. So the key points, that we're removing the $25,000 grant. We're carrying over an operational deficit of 31,574. We've also seen an increase, so this is an increase of the common cost, and it's unclear what the landing number will be at the moment, but we're seeing an increase from somewhere between 15,000 and 25. We've put the 25 into the budget, so we may see a decrease of 10,000 if it's on the lower end. And this is just the secondary bullet there is a note from Yev of what's making up those additional costs. And so that brings us up to 56,000 of the 93 increase of requisition, which leaves us with 37,000, which is made up in part by additional costs in terms of operating costs and other common costs, as well as CPI and thank you very much.
I saw something over here, Director Watson.
I'm looking for it. I will move the motion to remove the $25,000 grant from this year's budget.
Second, Director Jackman. Discussion on that particular motion? I'm saying none. Nothing up on the screen. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
More.
Please proceed.
Question is, Dan Gang still a part of the salary acquisition or calculation in this? And if so, I believe that is a change that we can anticipate moving forward.
Thank you, through the chair. There's two changes potentially that we can anticipate. One is, yes, a shift in Dan's time and also my time. So part of my leave is vacation time, part of my leave is unpaid time. We weren't sure exactly our hours, so we determined to see that as an end of year surplus rather than anticipate it at this time.
Yes, so I manage the salaries, and yeah, I didn't take out Dan's time because I'm not sure how long that's gonna be for, and I need a confirmation of Paris, so I left it as is. If you give us direction today to look at that and make those adjustments before budgets are approved, I can do that.
Yes, please.
And no, can you, we need a resolution, I think.
So I can do that if needed, but I need some clarification on a few things. First of all, when are we seeing this budget again? It should be at the February CSLAC meeting. Is that when we would see this again?
So through the chair, what I've been told is that December 19th, you will all receive the budgets. And then you'll receive them again in January, I believe. That's
December 19th?
when the actuals are all, December 19th. Did I say December 19th?
Yes.
Where you will be sent home with all the budgets and then you will receive them again in the new year in January.
So sorry, I don't mean receipt, I mean discussion.
Oh, discussion on this budget?
Yes.
Yeah, we're not meeting again for a while, so.
Well, February at this point is what we would be scheduled to meet for.
Except we won't have Paris here.
It's a discussion about the number we talked about.
Yeah.
Okay, my primary interest is that if we're giving direction, we still need to be able to review the budget because these are big changes. So I want to know that we're gonna have space to discuss this budget again. And so that's what I'm looking for in terms of process. The second piece to making a motion to review staff time. I don't know that we are the ones to make a motion to direct you to look at salaries when we've actually corporate wise moved a staff person. Like, I think that's embedded into the budgeting process. That shouldn't be a director's motion.
Yeah, through the chair. Correction taken. Yeah, we don't need direction for you to tell us to adjust the salaries, but given the conversation is talking about allocating Paris's time.
So that one,
So those are all things that I have to think about as we go through this process.
so if I may clarify, Chair. So let's just separate them out for a minute. Number one, I'd like to know this budget's gonna come back to this committee to discuss once we see the revisions. Number two, noted that Dan's time will be adjusted. That's not a motion required. Number three is, and this is a motion, but I believe it needs review, so I'm not entirely sure if you want a motion or a referral, which would come back to us when we review the budget, is could we flip the ratio on Paris's time, where currently it's 0.25 FTE in general admin and 0.75 FTE in S105? My question and request for review is, would it be reasonable to flip that ratio so it's 0.25 in sustainability and 0.75 in general admin? I don't know that it's appropriate to do a motion when we haven't really fully considered everything in both those services, so I'm seeking some staff feedback on that.
Okay, feedback, are you able to feedback at this point? Okay, and then,
Yep has his hand up.
Yev has his hand up. Sorry, who? Okay, Yev, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Just to clarify, when the consolidated budget will be available to the board, that will be in January for the January board meeting. The December 19th date is the cutoff for staff to have their budgets entered into Planner.
Okay, so January board for feedback.
Sorry, that's receipt of information. What I'm looking for, which I don't know that Yev can answer this, is when are we discussing this DSLAC budget again? I think that's this staff's question.
Right, through the chair, just clarifying the statement that was made that the consolidated budgets will be available on December 19th, which they won't be.
Okay, Paris?
May I ask a question through to you?
Sure.
Yeah, through the chair. Could you
Yes.
please clarify that the CFLAG budget is still available in February for discussion, or is the expectation that in January there's a approval of the general budget?
No.
Through the chair, it's available for change and discussion all the way up to the March budget meeting.
But
Okay, it doesn't answer your question.
it doesn't. To clarify, we need a meeting to discuss it because this doesn't go through our special budget meetings as a general service.
Yeah.
Sangeeta?
So through the chair, we will take this conversation and have this conversation further down on the agenda about meeting schedule. One of the issues that we have is that Paris is taking a 3-month sabbatical approximately, and so she won't be available. So if you want to have a budget meeting, it'll just be with me.
And yeah, I assume
And yeah.
Stuart.
Yeah, yeah,
That's good.
in February.
So then my final kind of, do you want a motion? Do you want to discuss it? What do you want to do with it? So A, yes, I want a February budget meeting. B, what do we need to consider to review the option of flipping that ratio between general admin and S105? Is that something, do you want me to move it as a motion and then see what the table says and go from there?
Before you do that,
Okay.
I'm gonna take Director Jackman.
Sure.
Okay, my point was a little bit related to the staff time,
Mhm.
because if we look at the.
And then I have Graham.
We have attachment 721 and 7.22 in the agenda. So 7.22 just shows the 2026 new projection and under prior year surplus, 78,800, and Sandy's notes it says complete. If we look at 7.2.1, if I saw the projected carryover, because I think I heard that if the staff time isn't adjusted, that might be that 70,800 or part of it. However, I don't see that appearing in 2027. So to me, that says more so that is that the placeholder of a projected 2026 surplus of 78,000, is that in fact largely the potential shift in staff time to other departments? Is that, or where did that number come from? Because it doesn't show up as future contract.
And you're talking about the 78,000 in prior year surplus? Through the chair, sorry.
Yeah.
For the, under the 2026 new projection, I'm just wondering how much or most of that, if that is if it's staff time which has not been reallocated properly to the new departments for the people who are working, or whether or not they're available.
No, through the chair, no, it's not for staff time. It's actual grant funding for project work that is to be done through contracted services.
But I might
Mhm.
follow up in 2027, I don't see that contract in service the following year, I should see it. Unless it's internal staff work, it doesn't, staff, 2027 contract will be zero,
Paris?
and consultant zero.
Thank you, through the chair. I think it might be, if we go back to the slide, maybe you can pull it back up. So if we look at the third line down, the prior year carryover, so the black number there is the deficit, the operational deficit. Our hope is that there's no operational deficit. Our anticipation is that there'll be no operational deficit for 2025. And then there's two grant surpluses in red, the 108 and then the 1600. It's anticipated that those will be spent in 2026. And that's why there's no grant funding. There may be additional grant funding anticipated in 2027, but none at this time.
So
Yeah,
we
go
don't
ahead.
have an anticipated hard contractual obligation in 2027. We should not be budgeting for 2026 surplus in that amount.
So
Hey, good point, Sangeeta.
through the chair, the surplus that you see of 108,000 is for, from grants that the Kootenai Lake Partnership received. And, as we're talking, I'm thinking there was a holdback from one of the grants that I didn't include here. So that will get adjusted in the next iteration of this budget. But that money is grant funding that we're carrying forward for Kootenai Lake Partnership work. And that work is being discussed now. We anticipate that will get completed in 2026. And all that money will be spent in 2026. There may be a chance it may not be, and that would then show up in next year's budget as a carry forward, but I'm hoping it's spent this year. That's what we anticipate.
I'm not thinking about this correctly, and yeah, there's a series of contractual carryovers.
Yeah.
And then mostly on that charges, so I'll go back to that, sorry.
So, okay, before I go to Director Graham, I just wanted to pull out and ask the question because we're now within the spreadsheets. Am I to assume that 7.23, 4, and 5, those are OPR, OVRs? That's detailed. Okay, are they embedded into the main budget? So those are informing the budget that we were talking about as a whole.
Correct.
So they're just there to break down further information, correct?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair. So OBR 113 is the general administration budget for S105. And then there's two project work orders. One is the Kootenai Lake Partnership, OPR 230, and then there's the Water Strategies and Sustainability, OPR 676.
Okay.
So those are two projects, and then there's an administration budget.
I just wanted to point that out, that it's in fact part of the mainline budget.
Thank you.
Director Graham.
Thank you. Actually, I've answered most of my questions now as you've been talking. I figured it out, but I just want to make a comment. And my comment is that this service is looking at a 9.2% increase in taxation. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm looking around, looking up. Don't see any other questions. I'm going to go back to Director Watson. Would you have anything in mind? We know that we're going to address this. Actually, we don't know when, but we need to. So the question was, do you put forward a motion now or do you wait till later?
Paris looks like she wants to speak to.
Thank you, through the chair. We can take it as staff direction and explore different options.
I'm comfortable with that. I think what the consideration I haven't been able to do to really see if that is, I mean, it then comes up in the special board meeting where we'd be looking at why is general admin increasing, and then the board could by default be like, nope, we don't want that, which they have the purview to do. But we needs to be a part of that consideration as actually a more strict look at where is your time landing. Last year when we did budget, we were like, yeah, actually look at that, sustainability is paying for your 75% of your I don't want to say staff salaries. And we know that a lot of the work isn't there, like a lot of it is held in general admin. So we had asked, how come the staff amount isn't allocated based on where the projects are housed? And so I think that analysis needs to be included in whatever the recommendation might be. And I'm happy for staff to come back to us with that. that being said, if it's at the February CSLAC meeting, that means it leaves it to the board at the February meeting to essentially possibly punt it back to us. So I'm not entirely sure the process around that, but I think working with Yev and working with Stuart on the right way to do that. I did tell Stuart, CEO, that I was going to propose this. And he had definitely suggested that, you know, really looking at projects and where they actually sitting and not just doing it based on what I'm saying right now. I haven't had the chance to do that deep dive. So where it comes back would be my question in terms of review, because I want to make sure we don't, you know, surprise the board with something that they don't agree with.
So we can't answer that question today.
You can't, but I trust staff to take a look at it and see what's most appropriate.
Okay, and then I'll remind the group that 7.2 has a from staff, a resolution.
So Chair, before we leave this, can I have a comment?
Absolutely, Director Davidoff.
Thank you. So Director Graham pointed something out and I did the math as well. I know I'm gonna be asked the question, why is there 49% increase in the requisition in this service? So I need some talking points to address that. So, and what we've discussed here today, I don't have clear talking points. I need that. So whenever it comes, I need those talking points. Thank you.
You're welcome. The staff resolution is for the board to, the 25,000 in grants from CSLAC S105 be removed from the draft of the 2026 financial plan.
We did.
Did we do that?
You were right there.
Okay, cool. Making sure.
We did it all.
Everybody's on the same page. Anything further in 7.2? I think it might be time for a break. We'll break until the half of the hour. Is that enough?
Not long enough.
Not long enough? A half an hour plus 5?
No. Other grievance,
And so then we will pick back up at 7.3.
so. Are we muted?
It's not yet if someone.
Oh, yeah. Hang on. Hold your thoughts.
I'll start with Teresa.
Yeah.
And I believe we're all back. Welcome, everybody. And while I'm waiting for people to populate on the screen, moving on to 7.3, and we're going to start with item number 2 first, because that's the presentation attachment. Is that correct as I look at Ellen?
Yes.
All right. We then shall proceed.
So this presentation is alongside the Ford Information Report that provides an update on the RMCAC, the Rural Mobility Advisory Committee. And I just thought it would be good to go through some of the highlights of the year with CSLAC. So I'll go through our overall goals, the process this year, and some of the initiatives. So within the goal of trying to support improvements to the regional transportation network, what our group is really focused on doing is building strong partnerships and relationships, solving some of our planning and understanding and trying to come up with solutions for some of the barriers to transportation and alternative forms of transportation, reducing the impacts, the environmental impacts of our transportation systems, and coming up with some business cases for some of the solutions. And so the reason we're doing this work is because currently your ticket to accessibility in ICK and well beyond is to own a personal vehicle and to be able to drive that personal vehicle around. And if you can't do that, you simply don't have the same level of access to work, to healthcare, to social outings, and so many other things. And so the access to transportation and mobility is currently inequitable across our communities. And so what we really focused on this year was the relationship building, the survey that we sent out to CSLAC members. And thank you for your responses. We connected with all of those different folks, tried to really understand what's currently happening in our region. Our region has incredible history that's rich and full of tons of different types of transportation, whether it's steamboats or cable ferries or trains or the first Greyhound service. It goes on and on. And then so we focused on learning about what's already happening, so we didn't duplicate any of that, and understanding what gaps and connections could be supported and how we can amplify the work. And our group, after we came up with our terms of reference, we prioritized 7 initiative areas and started to investigate these areas. And there was a focus from the group to not only look at the really big, challenging issues that are potentially beyond our capacity to solve, but also find some short-term, achievable, low-hanging fruit. So starting with some of the 7 projects, cycling education was really important to our group. And we found one program that was already operating in the Kootenays called Everyone Rides. And we supported that group to reach out to area directors and got a lot of support. And this fall, we were able to double the number of schools and go to an additional 8 schools with that program. 6 that had never been visited before, and offering this cycling education to an additional 363 students. And so we're hoping to reach all of the schools in the RDCK over the 2-year cycle of that program as it reaches grades 4 and 5. And then start to think about how this can be funded long-term, how to bring in school districts, how to bring in the PAC committees and all of the other players, and understand how this can potentially be part of a curriculum.
Before we move on, can I ask you a question on the Safe Cycle program, or that's what I refer to it as? Some of the literature pointed out to me that there's a current opportunity right now called the Hub, which is offering a Safe Cycle program, which is a project with the Ministry of Transportation and with the teachers in the school systems. So how does your program work in conjunction with and not in place of what's already existing there, is my first question.
Through the chair, so Kootenai Mountain Biking delivers the hub program in the Kootenays. So hub gets MOTT funding and then distributes it across the province. There's only one or two rural areas, RDCK being rural in their mind entirely. And so hub contracts KMB to deliver that program locally. And so we were just using director contributions to expand the number of schools that could be visited because the hub cycling funding is very limited. They can go to about 5 schools a year across 4 school districts.
Okay, thank you. My other question is related to participation from the community. So I have a cycle shop within the community of Creston who has reached out to me. I had expressed an interest in participating with the school program within Creston and spoke to, as he says, and he's emailed me with the details because I've asked him to be more specific about what his concern was. At the end of the day, he would like to be a part of those programs because he's in that business, but is told that he can't, or was told that he can't by RDCK. So what can I tell him after? And I said I would inquire, and that's what I'm doing now. I think it's a great idea that local businesses grab and pick up and support these programs because that's what they do. And it's in their community. So what can I tell him?
So through the chair, the Everyone Rides Grade 4-5 program was the only systemic program that we found. There was other one-offs, like a Cadlo had a cycling education program last year, so we opted not to go to Cadlo that year. I did reach out to all of the cycling shops around the Kootenays and got various levels of responses. So I don't know who would have told them that they're not able to be involved, but I would open up the opportunity for them to connect with us and definitely look for opportunities to be involved in the future.
Thank you. I will definitely share the information with you, and I just wanted to get clarity on it. But going forward, are you going to continue? Do you have to manage this going forward, or is this something that will start evolving on its own? Because it seems to me the hub program is something that can, and then the Kootenai program that supports it or local entities, that would be the best way to hand this off. So,
respectfully through the chair, I'm very curious how at the end of 2 years of showcasing the need for this type of cycling education in our school systems, how that can move on to more longer term funding. It doesn't seem like the province wants to continue funding the program at all in rural communities. But we're trying to solve that issue of like, how can we bring the school districts in? How can we bring parents in to show that this is valuable education?
all right. Thank you, Alex. Looking around, seeing nothing further, please continue. Oh, sorry.
Okay. I did want to clarify the funding through the chair to staff. So I had it in my 2025 allocations, but if you're still wanting it for 2026, I need to know that because I reallocate everything on a yearly basis.
Yeah, so respectfully through the chair, I'm just working with Kootenai Mountain Biker right now to sort out our spring delivery.
Okay.
So I'll try to get back to you shortly with that.
Yeah, great. And sorry, supplemental. I believe Caslo through the school did have a program. So there was some check-in around what was the school already doing. I have seen programs in Caslo before. So as a funder in that position, I would want any information regarding the program already existing to be included in what you might be requesting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Check.
Okay, Director Weatherford, ahead.
Thank you through the chair for so now with other organizations that do things sort of broadly, it's generally up to the organization themselves to do their own work, I guess, and generate more of what they're doing all over the place. And so just my question is that this becomes a regional district thing because of this fund, we're getting some funding to, help us along and that sort of thing. But looking forward, would it not be up to him to be the one to start doing the outreach to all the school districts themselves and getting, you know, again, like we help fund this through our director grants, things like that. That's what other organizations already do. Would that be something that could just be where it could end up landing?
Respectfully through the chair, I think there's a number of ways. One way would be, yeah, could be mountain bike every year. They go to the directors and they say, hey, can we have a few $1,000s from your area and we're gonna come visit. Another way is for the school district to say, hey, this is kind of like swimming and we want this to happen every year and we pay for it. So currently there's a group in Nelson that's looking at school district 20 specifically school district 8, sorry. And how they can work with the school district to get that into their curriculum. So that's one model. We could say, hey, Kootenai Mountain Bike, now that we've shown you how this happens, you continue to do that work. We have been advocating to the province and Hub saying, hey, there's value for this in rural communities because Hub has basically started to pull back from funding work outside of the Lower Mainland. So I think there's a few different ways to approach it.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair, I'm wondering, Director Page is in the meeting and I didn't realize that. Would he like freedom of the floor?
I would be happy to entertain that motion.
I move that.
Second.
There you
Okay, and all in favor? And our apologies to Director Page. Our screen has been busy with other things.
Of course, just here to learn and see what you guys are talking.
Is there anyone else that we've missed? Because we can't see everybody.
I'm not sure. I'll just check the participants list.
I think we're good. Okay. Please continue, Alex.
Moving to the next initiative. A lot of the connections we made around shared mobility programs came directly from the survey results that we sent out to directors. Many of the community service societies or parallel organizations operate medical shuttle, volunteer driver services, better at home programs, a variety of different models to connect lower income and mobility limited residents with medical appointments, social outings, and other necessities to their daily lives. And so we noticed that most of these organizations were encountering the same challenges, primarily funding, and then at some cases there's overlap in the services they're offering. And so as we started to explore this more, we found a group of these community service societies that are trying to start a regional service network for this type of a program. And so I will refrain from commenting on this further because there's a report following this on this topic specifically. Similarly, there's a report later in this meeting on the shared mobility apps and the user interface. So we connected with two different shared mobility platforms, Kootenai Rideshare, Kootenai CarShare. Both are sort of grassroots organizations that have been operating Kootenai Rideshare for 10 years in the Kootenays and CarShare for 25 years. And they both saw functional improvements as being necessary for the future of their services in this region. And so some of those options are provided in that report.
Question?
Yes, and either on this one or the next one, I'll ask now and put it where you would like. So I did note in the report, there was some question around the ability to have in-app servicing and whatnot. The areas that we lack transit also lack cell service. And short of being in their home using their phone, if they've got VoIP or Wi-Fi calling, their access to apps is quite limited. So I just wanted to highlight that the focus on rural areas that lack transit will also lack the technology needed for app-based interfaces.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm through the chair, point taken for sure. And I think with transportation in general, there is no silver bullet. Transit is not a silver bullet. It provides a backbone for transportation in our region, and the solution is a mosaic of different options for residents. Okay. Sorry for the title getting cut off there. So this is the mapping project. West Kootenai Cycle Coalition and Selkirk College worked with a GIS intern over the summer We supported them with some of the data collection, and now there's a publicly available web map that shows cycling routes across RDCK and RDK, or sorry, RDKB. And so that's available now. I'd love for you guys to go check it out, offer them feedback. They have a little bit more time at the GIS student to improve the map. And I see this as potentially a really useful resource for other initiatives in the future that maybe transit is wanting to connect to the active transportation infrastructure, or maybe we're trying to add functional improvements to those networks. And additionally, other layers can be added to that map in the future.
I have another question. I'm sorry, I'm just looking for the map.
Director Watson and
You can go Jackman if you want. I'm trying to find the
Director Jackman.
Sure, thanks. That's like, we show the Trans-Canada Trail over Great Creek, which is a challenge to drive, and I've chatted with a few people who cycled over that, but the question is, what's their criteria? That's not so much an active transportation route, that is a quest. The one guy was pouring rain and he's standing at the ferry, he was so psyched, he made it in only so many hours, and I thought, wow, people take that long to drive that.
Yeah.
What's your criteria? Because that's all it shows, kind of a very age. Is their objective to show any other kind of trail, or why show that kind of trail?
Respectfully through the chair, this is just a snapshot. If you go to the map, there are filters.
I'm on the map. So there's other.
Top left, you can filter through and you can, that was my first question, is like, is this a bike lane or is this, yeah, like my girlfriend is one of those people who is probably on Great Creek once in a while, and yeah, it's not how you get to work. But there's filters to, yeah, see the different types of routes.
That's all we got. Okay, thanks.
Do you want to opt in, Paris?
My apologies. Yes, through the chair. Just to confirm, there's a link at the bottom. If you have the slides open, that it should be linked.
Or, yeah, West Kootenai Cycling Coalition,
Thank
their
you.
website.
And your question or comment?
Yeah, thank you. I found it. My computer's just really slow, so I'll play around with understanding it. So definitely appreciate that you noted this is not about actual access to your job. This is cycling, which is a lovely thing and great and good for active transportation in terms of recreation, but it's not transportation to essential needs. So just clarifying that. My concern, and this came up, CBT once approached me a couple of years ago before we had this conversation around supporting bike lanes on our highways. And I need to be really frank and say that our highways are extremely unsafe for some of these cycling routes. Just looking, and I haven't turned on any of the filters to see what they're actually saying, but looking at one that's going through like the Lost Ledge Bluffs, we actually have logging trucks where a logging truck and a regular truck going through there is tight, like you don't want to move an inch. And so I wonder what the safety metrics are that were applied to recommending this, because I told CBT at the time I would never recommend people bicycling on some of these highways, Coffee Creek, Lardo, Lost Ledge, any of the bluffs. It's way too tight. And being a driver, I've had to choose between hitting a logging truck or a bicycle. And of course you slow down as fast as you can. But there are big safety concerns from my perspective in terms of actually promoting cycling in some of these areas. It's not safe. And so what is the metric for identifying that we're not actually promoting unsafe recreation?
Respectfully through the chair, so we did connect them with RDCK GIS services to gain the layer of transit, BC Transit stops, and a little bit of active transportation mapping that has been done. But West Kootenai Cycling Coalition collected most of this data external to us.
Go ahead.
So I think what we need to do is add in a layer to narrow zones, to bluffs, to areas where I would be concerned the reliability of promoting something that, like, well, people do it, they do it, that's great. I don't want to be involved in promoting some of these routes because it is extremely dangerous. And so there should be some type of like, like on Drive BC, you get the little hazard notion, putting that up for all the bluffs where extreme caution, not recommended, something like that.
Respectfully through the chair, I think that is West Kootenai Cycling Coalition's primary purpose with, I think they have a certain number of hours with the student left. And so they're starting a system where I think it's exactly that icon is gonna be added, excitement, exclamation mark, for things like safety concerns, pinch points, and that will help them prioritize advocacy in the future.
Okay, great. So, thank you. And so further, I'm gonna build on that because it was a point that I wanted to bring up as well. So in the Crescent Valley, we have one section of road that's 5 kilometers long. It's called Highway 3. And that has shoulders. Nothing else in Crescent Valley has shoulders, and certainly through 3A. And I was wondering about the liability part, the safety part, and in terms of promoting that type of, that's basically for people to decide to manage that risk as they see fit. To say that RDCK is backing an app that allows you to do these sort of things, I kind of wondered about that because I think the risk is there and there's nothing we can do to change that infrastructure. So I just wanted to point that out as well, because that's the reality. This is we're first focused on trying to do some things for the rural, and this may not be one of them that suits Crescent Valley very well, type thing. Director Weatherhead.
Thank you, through the chair. Again, this is, I'm gonna sort of say the same thing here as the liability kind of looking at the trail that I know of, that I also know crosses somebody who owns ALR land on either side and has a dangerous dog, and that dog has been cyclists. So that being something we promote, I'm not comfortable with that. That's something that the Trail Society has tried to resolve, they haven't been able to, and I don't know if this organization knows of all those little nooks and crannies all over the place of things that are potential hazards, and how could they know unless they are really, really, communicating well with all the societies that are managing all of these trails.
Respectfully through the chair, so I think right now with this map kind of in a beta version is the perfect time to reach out to them. And I think that's part of their review process, is to have a system where folks can put in comments and say, hey, I don't know about recommending this route, and here's my reasons why. And they're putting time into noting that. So.
Okay. All right, please continue, Alex. Don't see anything online, right?
No.
Are you watching that?
Yes, I'm
okay.
So the next initiative area was transit advisory.
Chair, I'm sorry, Chair, I was late to the.
I'm sorry, did I hear something? You're breaking up, Andy. I can't quite, no, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay now? Yeah, I just had to shut my video off for a sec there. I was having problems.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, Chair. Yeah, it's really interesting. We're talking about, active transportation networks and all kinds of extra things. But then the province goes and I'm doing another letter to Farnworth and everybody. They go and absolutely destroy the active transportation network in a compact community. And I've got that in Sure Acres, where you can't ride a bike anymore, rips your tires apart. You can't push a stroller down the road that they've pushed strollers down for I don't know how long, as far as anyone can remember. So it's kind of, and it's because seal coating is 15 to 20%. And I got a formal letter from the ministry saying, if you want to have a bike route or something like that, that's a local government responsibility. Like, I've written a scathing letter back to Farnworth, which I will be posting to the media. They're destroying our active transportation networks that we had. And then this whole business, if we keep looking at, okay, well, let's do some stuff and raise the money ourselves. Like, it's just galling. So I'm just going to stop there, but I'm going to stop there. Thanks, Chair.
All right, thank you, Director David Opp. Alex, please go ahead.
Yeah, so transit advisories. This year we spent a lot of time looking into how transit is planned in the RDCK, looking at the transit future services plans, connecting with Tom Dool, and sitting in on some of the transit committee meetings. And so we drafted, the RMCAC and the subgroup of that team, drafted our priorities for what we would love to see from public transit, including consideration of alternative transit models, thinking beyond the bus, better connections with health facilities, active transportation, and potentially bus stop programs. And so we're hoping to engage and support the transit committees in 2026.
Director Watson.
Yeah, I just want to note that for myself and Area D, this would be the primary work I'm interested in. The cycling is lovely. I would not be interested in putting a lot of focus on that moving forward, especially outside of the grant. Transit is our issue, and transit in rural areas is primarily like those innovative ideas, all those things. That's what I'm very interested in. Kids are on the bikes all the time. Safety's good. It's kind of being covered in other areas. So just letting you know, from my perspective, this is the only priority I would be interested in post the grant funding work.
Okay. I will have to opt in and say conversely, in the Crescent Valley, we have TAPS, we have medical transit, we have transit, we have a call and we'll come and pick you up transit. We've got a regular kind of bus stop type of transit in our valley, and we're facing with a 10% increase for that service. So, and we have the little bike rack in the front of our units too. And so I just want to say that as far as on the Crescent Valley is concerned. Oh, and by the way, you're more than welcome. It says in the bylaw that you're going to come and visit us at Crescent Valley Services. You're more than welcome to do that anytime. To come and have a chat with us, and we'll probably say the same thing. So.
Thank you. I think what you're likely hearing is that the transportation issues are so local that it's really, you can't make a blanket statement and say, well, we need better bus transportation and we need better bike routes, because it's, I mean, they didn't even show a bike route in the Silverton, New Timber area, and for good reason. It's, you know, you're taking your life in your hands to bicycle around there. Big issue for us is bus service, you know, and we have lost our Health Connections bus to Kelowna, no longer exists. So, you know, I will say here what I've been saying at FCM for 11 years, unless you own a vehicle and can drive it, can afford air transportation, you can't get there from here. You just can't. And bus transportation in the regional district as a whole is, I think, is the biggest issue. Oh, you know, sort of in general terms.
Through the chair, I mean, noted, like every person that we talk to, every group has a different priority, and we're trying to hold all of those, and transit does have a service, and so our focus on that is to support those services and to support those conversations. And even within that, transit across RCK is quite varied. Not only the service levels, but the types of service, whether it's paratransit or on demand or the handy dart or the Health Connections bus like these, or Arrow Slocan Lakes bus that was going out to Vernon and Kelowna. There's so many different models. And so, you know, I'm in early conversations with Tom about how best our group can support what's already happening there. But I think some of it is looking at those alternative models and the ones that maybe work and ones that don't work, or how we can start to use those models in other communities across the RD.
All right, let's continue.
Active Transportation Advisory Team. This is a key priority of the group, and probably the most complex issue that we've been discussing, simply because it involves so many different authorities. And they're challenging conversations to enter. The critical piece, I would say, of this sphere of transportation is that projects generally have a massive capital investment up front, into the design of a path, into engagement process into the construction. And then operational budgets are a bit lower than something like a transit service. So we're still really engaged in talking about these issues. Over the summer, we had about 10 different community projects, things from bridges, pedestrian bridges, pedestrian additions to existing bridges, pathways, bike lanes. Like there's so many projects that the community would love to see. And it's overwhelming how much interest there is. And there's simply no service home for this work within the RDCK currently. There's not enough support for it realistically approaching this issue currently. And so we did take a deeper dive into one specific project that was a priority of the group, and that was the New Denver to Silverton corridor. We met with the ministry, we met with local directors, and we started investigating what it would look like to add a path between these two communities that are 3 kilometers apart, but essentially, though they're 2 municipalities, they are 2 neighborhoods of 1 community. And it was very interesting. The North Slocan Trail Society produced a white paper on all this investigations and the engagement that they went through. We collected cost estimates and the scope of work for what it would take to design the path, and looked into funding opportunities. All this to say, I'd like to mention that at our last CSLAC meeting, it was brought up that there had been no appointments brought to board for the RMCAC. And so we went back and we reviewed the bylaw and realized there was no language in the bylaw that required that. So right now we're working with corporate admin to add that in, and then we can bring the appointments, the recommended appointments to board. But that being said, this group has a minimum number of members participating and no maximum. So if you ever feel like there's someone in your area that needs to be included in our conversations and in our work, please connect them with us. We're always happy to add more voices.
All right, looking around, and that is your presentation, Alex. Thank you for that. I'm not seeing any questions right now. Did you want to go through any of the other attachments? This is for information. Yeah, this is an update. I'm not seeing anything, so thank you. And we will now move to 8.1 and discuss volunteer driver regional services collaborative from LGCAP funding. And we do have a staff recommendation on this.
Chair, would you like me to speak to it, or?
Yes, please. Yeah.
So this was one of the initiative areas that we mentioned, the Volunteer Driver Network. There's a group of community service societies and parallel organizations that are working together to try and come up with a more effective model of delivering these types of services across the region. And so they've asked for support in that, the planning of what that model could look like. And that's what's detailed in this report. Questions?
Director Jackman.
Yeah, thanks. I know we struggle, and that it's, the report says there's so many different ways these volunteers are called together to keep things going. And as I look through this, you know, it's whether it's standard 20,000, we'll leverage hopefully the 245. So we're talking about $260,000. If our voice leveraging a little bit of this other money in water, gaining grants for CBT and the like, then I would like us to put that voice forward and put our money where our mouth is. So I think this is a good leveraging opportunity if we help the other funders come to the table with that vast majority of the money. And all the volunteer groups need a little better support and coordination. They are all struggling to hold somebody that's reliable and there when we need them.
Director Watson.
Yeah, I'm just curious if so there's been several iterations of volunteer driver programs across the Kootenays, and I would assume, and suppose that I didn't get through the whole report, full disclosure. Some of my concerns are, how does this, so I know the committee, and I'm grateful that you've noted, and we will get actual appointments in there because it's a better way for us to track our areas covered kind of thing. At the north end of the lake, it's still informal. They've been trying for years. So my first question is, how is Area D considered in this? Is it through Castle Community Services? Is it through Links? How is that connection made? Because they would have a lot of feedback on what hasn't worked. That's my first question.
Respectfully through the chair, we made an effort to connect with Links, and they're happy to be informed, but don't have a lot of time to engage. But what I know of the volunteer driver program specifically is that the largest program in the region is Castlegar Community Services Society. They offer, I think it's called the West Kootenay Volunteer Driver Program, and they have gone up to the north of the lake, and I believe Nelson Cares has as well. But every year they also go to the area grants, the Ready grants, and so they're trying to build a case for increased services out there, but without a certain level of support, it's really hard for an organization like that to go that far abroad. But the point of the driver network would be to have this coordinating regional service that can then support the smaller groups that can't build a program on their own to manage that in their area.
So supplemental?
Yes.
So I appreciate you reached out to Links. Links would be the furthest removed from this program in terms of they haven't done one. They're not in it, but they're the farthest from any transit and the farthest from any health connections. So I'm glad you reached out to them. I understand why they would give that response to you. The two organizations within CASLA would be CASLA Community Services, who for years, I know who it is who's been doing it, so I won't name it, but she's been trying really, really hard, and she works with the company. The other one is NavCare, who is always doing this work. So I don't like, it's LGCAP funding. I'm happy to support it, but I'm a little apprehensive to actually see a change in how difficult it's been to pull this off. So I wouldn't not support the motion at this time, but I'd really like to see something different occur, and working with NavCare and Castle Community Services on why has it not worked with Castlegar, because those are two really well-established organizations at the north end of the lake. Sorry, Caslo, not total north end, but close to the north end. And how they're involved in the conversations, because they would give a lot of feedback on what hasn't worked or what they need. And I do believe one of them is actually the requirements on the drivers get really difficult, which you can't really get around, but sometimes that's why they end up going informal and just being like, well, if it's just me saying, hey, Paris, like, I can give you a ride here, then you don't have to worry about all the things. And that's what ends up making it not work.
Respectfully through the chair, we've also connected with Castle Community Services, and I don't know if they're currently in the conversations, but I think they'd be welcome to be, but NavCare is for sure. A couple of weeks ago, I attended a conversation where these community service societies were just talking with each other about what this might look like. And NavCare was very involved in that conversation, and we're interested in potentially setting up the regional booking system for it.
Okay, I'll move the motion.
Okay, seconded. The motion is moved. Director Hewitt, and open for discussion, Director Weatherhead.
Just a question is, happy to see Luella and Kate on this, and I know we are in discussions with them. Would this, just to connect this to what they're doing with their own, medical bus, is this connected to that? Would this also be part of that or separate? It would become part of that?
Directly through the chair, it could be part of that, for sure. Aaron Slocan Lakes are also in the conversation. Recently, their bus reached end of life, and so they're trying to find a new vehicle. And in the attached research report, it talks about, one of the primary examples is the volunteer driver model, and one of the other primary examples is the medical shuttle, which is what Aaron Slocan Lakes were delivering successfully. There's an incredible amount of community support for that to be revived. And so it is definitely one of my priorities to see that model incorporated. And so it would just be up to the community service societies at the table to say, yes, we'd like this to be a part. So the Aaron Slocan Lakes were there and wanted that to be a part of the conversation. I think it's already identified.
Thank you, because our local buses has been phenomenal and so that's because they need it. And some of these smaller, you got not the big bus, just for, so it could be a volunteer driver. Thank you.
Anything further? You're good there? Okay, I guess my question is, to Director Jackman's point, if we can invest something that will leverage a greater return, that's really what our focus ought to be. When I look at who you have here working this right now, and various levels of success, I wonder, I mean, we're not going to finance a bus, we're not going to finance a route. What we're trying to do with the money is encourage those that are working the problem right now to be more successful. But I'm not sure, based on what I read in the report, how that's going to turn out in Crescent Valley. I don't know that there's any big opportunity for us there, but I'm not saying that we're, exclusive by any stretch. So I'm just contemplating or trying to imagine how this money can really pay off, because I'm open to hearing what that might look like.
Through the chair, I think it's still an exploration. Aaron Slocan Lakes, they have this model of sending people to Vernon and Kelowna, and it was very successful. In Creston, there's a bus that goes to Cranbrook. That's, to some reports, fairly successful as well, of getting folks to the hospital. So there are these different models, and there's also overlapping models. East Shore Transportation Society and South Kootenay Lake have their programs. So I think it's still an exploration of what works. How can these organizations work together? Does everyone need to figure out the insurance every year? Can one group do that and support the others with it? Does everyone need to have a booking system? Can one group do that and support the others? So I think it's still early stages in terms of connecting these groups and supporting them through those conversations.
And I think that's the key, is supporting them through the conversations for them to be able to tell their own stories and their successes. I don't know that the money will really, that's the thing that I struggle with. Director Jackman.
Yeah, for some of our subregions that we call it that, I don't think the money is gonna show up so much as being critical, but the communication. Valley Community Services is noted as one of the participants in the conversation. And so they not only, the TAPS program and all, but they have also mentored the East Shore group, the Better at Home, or traveling TAPS as we call it, because it moves around in different spots. And as Alex just pointed out, the East Shore Transportation Society. So some of the value will be maybe where the cash lands and the coordinator that's, dealing with helping an entity frequently, but there's also more embedded value to communication. And that goes beyond what you see in these reports as the entities that are involved, because you don't see that second or third tier of assistance. And as I say, Valley Community Services has for a number of years been supporting two other entities. So it's not all hard cash coordinator type value. It's just not missing the load on something. The insurance, that's one of the really things. And then also about certification and licensing, all that stuff that I know that through this network, we share information. So they're not either overspending on bus inspections and certifications and stuff, and you're getting better done. So there is some value there, regardless of whether it looks like hard hours dedicated through the year. It's just general information sharing that's fine.
Right, thank you. I guess before I call the question, I still have to, it's almost not enough money. The communication part is key, but that doesn't cost. There's so many other factors that prohibit the success of the program, that the $20,000 isn't really gonna do anything. The hope is that it leverages, but how is it leveraging? I mean, is it a marketing thing? Is it an extensive communication program? I mean, that's the part that I'm kind of stuck on right now. Right now, I have not been convinced in the debate to support the motion. So I want to hear something that convinces me. Go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. I just wonder, and my apologies if this is part of your thinking, but that it is, the intent is to include it as part of a larger funding application of 300,000.
Respectfully through the chair, so this funding is leveraging many different pots of funding. So Castlegar Community Services already have acquired 10,000 from the Rural Transportation Solutions Fund that is dedicated towards just this process, the setting up of those models. They've also applied to the Gaming Grants Fund for, I think it's 250,000. They are applying to other additional fundings. One of the primary funders was at the table a few weeks ago talking about a potential parallel funding stream for a regional program that was United Way. So I think there's a lot of interest in larger funding applications. This by no means is going to run the program. It's just helping to get that on its feet.
And that's my point. These are already moving and we're talking big dollars. I've got to go back to whether we give them $1,000 or $20,000, it's still going to do what it does. I guess that's the thing. So, I mean, perhaps that we can allocate that to something that really can show that it launches. This is almost like just throwing money at the wall because we can't. But it's already in motion. It's already momentum. It's already being done by good, successful organizations. So that's just my comment. Anything further before I call the question? And the question I will call, all in favor? And that is carried.
You do have to call opposed.
Opposed?
Can I just ask a procedural question? Who's doing minutes?
That's being
Robin
recorded.
Burrell.
Robin, Chris,
Okay, great. And so
And she's in touch with me. I just.
okay, so you noted Cheryl's left. You've got all the motions that have gone.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, we've noted that. We'll let her.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you. We are on, I believe we are on 8.2, and that is Spokane Lake and yeah, no, that's the wrong one. Kootenai Rideshare user interface improvements, and there is a motion to that effect, or a staff recommendation, I guess I should say.
Doing papers.
There you go.
So similarly, this was another priority initiative area of the Rural Mobility Community Advisory Committee. We connected with two different shared mobility platforms, Kootenai Rideshare and Kootenai CarShare, over the year, and discussed the challenges that they face due to a lack of evolving user interface. And so what's presented in this report is one potential solution to that, based on the advice of the Rural Mobility Advisory Committee. Are there any questions?
Describe to me what a user interface is.
So the way that a user of the service, directly through the chair, utilizes, accesses the program. So that could be an app or a web-based app. There's a number of different types of user interfaces.
All right, Director Watson.
I was just noting through the chair to staff that Kootenai Rideshare has been a fee-free service. And I do think I would, you know, in terms of sustainability, I think they need to revisit that to some degree. I'm not necessarily, I wouldn't say we're throwing money at the wall to take the words out of the chairs. No. In terms of knowing how much this has been relied on, mostly because on Facebook, people will be like, oh, try Kootenai Rideshare. So I know it's out there. I have reservations over apps, mostly because I don't like them. And every time I try to download one, my phone's out of data and then I need no phone. And I do not like what we're doing to the earth to meet our technological needs. And I think they're having a mom who was terminally ill for 8 years, all the things that were required to use technology, I find very not user-friendly at times. All that aside, I do know that majority is moving to this type of system. And if I can support it And I would like to see, or I would encourage the organization to look at a fee-for-service model that supports them sustainably, opposed to grant hunting. And then the fee that you use to, whether it's Gaia Maps or anything you're doing, like I can only get so far on all trails without having to be a part of the service. So I think these are standard procedures. So that's not necessarily contingent on supporting this request, but I do think long-term, they need to really look at the users being members and membership benefits of being one, or members of the co-op and get a great discount when I spend $500. So different story, sorry.
Director Jackman.
Or Alex had feedback.
Yeah,
Did you have,
respectfully,
sorry, Alex.
so respectfully through the chair, that is a conversation that is happening for sure. There's conversation about, there needs to be an organization to basically home Kootenai Rideshare if they're gonna move to that model. And so Kootenai Carshare could potentially be that home, but Kootenai Carshare is not at a point right now to take anything on. They're dealing with their own challenges. And so this, like currently the rideshare is operating very well. I went on today and there was 15 rides posted and additional 5 requested. Since it was created, 1.5 million kilograms of carbon have been reduced through the platform that are just confirmed with over 12,000 rides. So it's definitely operating, and this is just to keep it at a level where it can continue offering that service and improve that because of where the rest of technology is going and the other platforms that are coming through and the rising number of scams. So,
Supplemental.
Yes.
I think and I don't think we can always consider new things, but I would say they need to know this is a one-time thing, that they're not going to rely on this as being how we sustain the program. That the encouragement is, okay, here's some buffer funding and figure out how to be sustainable. These might be it.
Director Jackman.
Thanks. I have to admit, I think I said this last time you talked about an application, it's a little more nebulous to me. We've had lots of ideas where we're gonna create something to track or this and that. And usually with that, I'll see somebody like Jeff comes to mind and he's short, you would say, yeah, this is a $10,000 or $20,000 thing to develop. This to me is pretty nebulous. Like, there's no quote or budget. I can't see where the other money's coming from. Is this a $50,000 exercise, or did somebody actually do this for $2,000 in norm basement paying themselves $20 an hour? It's nebulous to me, and how sophisticated would that be? And I actually appreciate the comment earlier that I think it talked about location, possibly giving you a location map. You can't stand in front of my house on the highway and find out how far your ride is. But if you walk 2 kilometers south, you can actually get a signal from West Creston Tower if you just at the right angle. So it's nebulous. Like, yeah, I think it's been repeated once. Not throwing money at anything. We're trying to support good ideas. But I don't see where this is gonna go. So do we have a full budget? Do we know who would develop this kind of app? And what total cost of it? Is this seed money or is this the whole thing?
to the chair. So this would be the whole thing for the identified improvements. We went through a whole list of improvements. Many of them weren't possible, just for various reasons. I did have a table that didn't make it into this report, but this would be developed by the technology or the software developer for both Kootenai Carshare and Kootenai Rideshare. Is develop both those platforms, and this would be the mentioned 2 improvements to the Kootenai Rideshare platform.
So there's no procurement process, they understand what you're gonna do, and that's why actually get it done. That makes it easier to support.
Director Weatherhead.
You got Paige with his hand up.
Thank you.
Thank
Just,
you.
my question through the chair is, does this program get funded, or any support through Columbia Basin Trust?
Respectfully through the chair, they have for the creation of 10 years ago for the creation of that platform, they did.
Okay, Director Page.
Thanks, guys. Sorry for the, just listening to the conversation. I appreciate the aspirations, and I wanted to reinforce that importance of that financial sustainability long-term, especially in a platform upgrade, especially when dealing with the different kinds of scams that go on. There could be an opportunity through those conversations to push these improvements to get to a place where online payments are possible through a major provider that would allow them to generate some revenue long term. Understanding, one-time grants went into these through CBT in the past. They've delivered a lot of service over the timeline. They validated a customer side of the model. Money is certainly being exchanged for the services. They just, from my technical perspective, do need that push when they're doing that improvement to capture some of that revenue. So that they can sustain themselves and stay in a maintenance space as opposed to a catch-up space, which is where those platforms have fallen at present. So I support. I think it's good for the committee to support work there. I think Chair Watson's, Director Watson's comments around financial sustainability, whether that's membership-driven or learning how to plug into accepting payment methods so you can take a sliver of them. I think it's a really critical way for these apps to survive long terms. And so it should be something we're looking for in those projects is what is your long-term sustainability plan? How are you going to capture some of that revenue, either through membership or through a slice of the pie as people are transacting? Because it'll tell us whether or not we're coming back in 10 years to do this again, or 8 or 5 or whenever. So just my comments for your guys' consideration.
Thank you. All right, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, respectfully through the chair, well taken. Basically, that is where Kootenay Car Share is now at. They're saying we need to improve this model so that we're getting money to provide our operating budget with that support. And Kootenay Rideshare needs the home first. So that's kind of the next phase of conversation between car share and rideshare once that model for car share is working.
So they have a model that they've been working. It has been generating revenue, but it's not generating enough revenue. They need a little bit of infusion to keep them going.
Respectfully through the chair, Kootenay Car Share has an operational model where they're generating revenue. And so the work that we did was to find a way for them to improve that model, because currently it's not working the way they want it to. Kootenay Rideshare doesn't have an operating budget. It was a non-profit, fee-free service.
So is the model the right one? If it's not proving successful now, how is it going to prove successful going forward? And I will.
So back to what I was saying, to move to a fee service, a paid service, they need like an organizational home to house that service. The only one that they've found potentially willing is Car Share. Car Share is not ready to do that yet. And so that's where that conversation's at.
Director Watson.
I'm happy to move the motion. I'll move the motion, and then I have a question based on what you just said, Alex.
Okay, Director Watson's moving the motion and he is seconder. Director Tierney. And we will, and go ahead.
Thank you. So I just caught that. So Rideshare, which is what we're funding, is currently a nonprofit, but the co-op is actually a for-profit. Is that correct?
No, I don't think, through the chair, I don't think Kootenay Rideshare is a nonprofit. It was originally established through Sustainable Kootenays, which has since disappeared. So the service is just operating, but there's no home for it at the moment. So it's a fee-free service,
So
not a nonprofit.
my catch on that is we can't fund unless it's an organizational entity that qualifies. So Paris.
Thank you. They have a relationship to receive funds because they've received the other grants. And so we know that they can receive funds publicly. it's not going to an individual. So we, unfortunately, we don't have that information available to us, but we did look into it and make sure that they were able to receive public funds.
Okay, and then my final is just that I'm grateful that you looked into that because that was a flag for me as you were discussing the fee and whatnot. We can fund them at this point. If they move into a model where it's a fee for service, they're likely not a nonprofit at that point. We'll leave it at that point. Our funding is not, at that time it's built, but I think that that's part of their consideration is the model, the governing model.
And if I may, through the chair, so Kootenai Car Share is a nonprofit. They have a board. There's a society. They operate a revenue service, but it all goes back into the society. So because they've been charged, they operate a fee for service, but it goes back into the society. So what Alex is saying is that if rideshare goes to some sort of fee for service model, they would join. Likely they would join with Kootenai Car Share as part of that society, and so that it would all be public and
okay.
Still,
you've done the homework on it. That's what
Yeah, likely or will? Is this kind of contingent upon that relationship developing?
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay.
The question about the future sustainability of how they, as Director Page was saying, move out of the catch-up mode to the maintenance mode is that question of how what their future sustainability that Director Watson was also highlighting as well. This piece is just bringing them up into the current today mode.
All right. Anything further? Looking online, we have a motion on the floor. And I'll call the question. All in favor? All right. Online. And opposed. That is carried. All right, thank you. 8.3. Slocan Lake and River Partnership Terms of Reference for approval. And there is a board recommendation. And who will speak to the terms of reference, which is attached?
I will, Director Popoff will move the recommendation for discussion.
Second.
All right, seconded by Director Main, and go ahead, Paris.
Thank you, through the chair. So at the date on the terms of reference note, on October 8th, the working steering committee for the Slocan Lake and River Partnership, which is a project that has started at CSLAC, has been supported by CSLAC financially, and we provided updates, came to clarity around the terms of reference, produced a finalized version, and is now seeking endorsement from the entities that have been part of the initial working group and also are part of the larger invitation for the steering committee as well. And so this, being that it's a CSLAC project, we're requesting that the RTCK sign and support the terms of reference. It's not a binding signature, it's an expression of interest and support.
All right, Director Watson.
Yeah, just procedurally, a couple things on this one and the previous ones is that because the board's actually authorizing this, the terms of reference should be included in the addenda to the board agenda.
Right.
And as I thought of that, I realized the LGCAP funding report is on the board agenda. These motions will come through CSLAC. So you might want to also include Alex's reports on the addenda so that, because it's actually the board approving via the LGCAP funding. Hopefully that's clear. So procedurally, in terms of the terms of reference, it's up to the board. Or it's up to this committee and then the board.
Okay, Sangeeta?
If I may say something about the slurp, it's taken us a while to get there. There's been a lot of political, discussion around the indigenous piece. But what both Paris and I are really observing is both the Silks and the Snakes are really working towards the same goal, which is, the work that we want to do on the shoreline guidance document. So I think from that perspective, it's a great opportunity, and the relationship with their staff and us has been positive in that regard.
Okay, thank you. I guess the only thing that jumped out to me was in terms of the composition, and it's the voting, it's the ability to decide in terms of a conflict or a draw. Are you comfortable with, you have non-elected and elected personalities that are part of this voting mix, including staff? Is that a comfort, area of comfort? Oh, Director, well, you've been, Director Popoff, I think you know the answer to that question.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I've got the answer to that question, but procedurally, this was done through CSLAC. So it comes back to CSLAC for a recommendation to the board, and the board does the final approval. And we have a list of participants. We had meetings with our governance committee, and the First Nations participation, the governance committee, they were all in favor of this. They haven't signed the agreement yet. And there is an agreement that they have to sign, and it's being offered to the municipalities. We had a presentation at the Slocan Valley Services Committee on this issue. Paris presented, and it was accepted as a good document to move forward on. The only drawback, or I wouldn't call it a drawback, is we have offered it to the municipalities. The three municipalities within the Slocan Valley are New Denver, or Silverton, and Slocan, and they will have the option of participating in this terms of reference.
Thank you, Director Watson. And then
Yeah.
Jacqueline.
And I'm sorry I didn't catch this before, but this is just to clarify what the motion needs to state that RDCK signs as a signatory. This is not approving the terms of reference. The terms of reference is approved by the Slocan Lake Partnership. And noting this is not an RDCK terms of reference, under remuneration, you're referencing a bylaw that is RDCK's. And I think that might need a bit of corporate review, because technically you can't apply a bylaw to something that's not ours. So just, I don't know how much that needs to change before we actually sign it. We're essentially signing that we're joining this team, but we are not the authority on this team. I think being really clear about that distinction is important. Similar to the KLP, we're not the authority on it, we're a participant.
Okay, before I opt in, Director Jacqueline.
Two thoughts. I heard the word voting come up. When that came up in Kootenai Lake Partnership, but I'll shake our head. We didn't vote on stuff. You can't vote to make the province or fisheries and oceans or anybody do anything. So it was never a voting thing, in this did as well. It's consensus, agreement, working where you can. And the other point I want to bring up, because Director Popoff just talked about volunteering to sign on or not. The Kootenai Lake Partnership terms of reference circulated for a year or more before, and I think City of Nelson might have been the last one to sign it off. There, John, this could float around for many, many months. And that was good. Didn't stop us from sitting down and talking about what we wanted to talk about. But over the course of that year, people got comfortable enough to sign on. So this will be a long haul before it's all I's dotted, T's crossed.
So I'm going to look at the chair. Oh, Director May.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair to Director Jackman, thank you for that background referencing the Kootenai Lake Partnership, because I know that Silverton has not reached a consensus yet on what level of participation to have. And so it's good to know that it's good to look at this as a living document rather than an endpoint. So thank you.
So my question then to our chair is the motion is to the board authorize you to sign on behalf of the board for this terms of reference. But is that a little bit premature?
I think as long as the board gets to review this, ideally, now that I'm understanding the process, it wouldn't have been in the addenda, because the amount of directors who will actually read this beforehand is not likely. So we can see when we get to that item, it will come through the minutes. In terms of the motion itself, I do think we need a bit of a different language in terms of the board authorize that the board agrees, or I need to play with the wording a bit, but it sounds like we are authorizing the terms of reference, which is not what we're doing. We are agreeing to be a signatory on the terms of reference, and that's the distinction we need to make.
So then, sorry, go ahead, please.
Through the chair. If I can, that the board authorize the RDCK board chair to sign as a signatory of the Slocan Lake and River Partnership Terms of Reference.
Yes, and supplemental to that is just, you can just say the board authorized. You don't need to have the,
Great.
If the board's signing, it's the chair.
So then I'll go to Director Propoff. Do you feel, are you satisfied as a friendly amendment?
Well, absolutely. The whole intent is, as a director with the regional district, I cannot sign that on behalf. So the board is signing on behalf of every representative on the board.
All right, and our seconder was okay with that. So then we have that verbiage change. Are we clear what it is?
I think Paris is, I'll be reading the minutes anyways.
Okay, so we have a change, a friendly amendment. Anything further?
Sorry,
Yes.
because this does go in the addenda, Paris, I do think maybe just removing the remuneration bylaw reference might be your quick adjustment. And because I know at Kootenai Lake Partnership, we don't claim any stipends. It's not through the RD, so we might just want to figure out a different way of wording that. If, again, I'm not on that, I haven't been in those discussions, so as long as that's amenable to the partners that have had that discussion.
Walter's head is nodding, and would say yes. Okay, anything further before I call the question? I'm seeing none. All in favor of the amended motion? And those who do not wish to comply? And it is carried. All right. 8.4, CSLAC meeting dates. I guess that is what's in the document, excuse me there, but February may not be a date of meeting.
Because of the budget, I think we are meeting.
We are meeting. Okay, please.
I would move the motion with the proposal of February, June, and October and December.
Well, interesting.
Remove 2 of the dates.
So need a seconder on February, June, October, and December. I do have a seconder, Director Jackman. And go ahead.
Second.
Oh, I got it. Yeah. And do you wish to speak to that?
Jackman wants to speak to it, go for it. Or sorry, I'm not the chair, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. And
Yeah,
Chair.
go for it.
Thank you, chairs. We have talked about, the cost of the meetings and numbers of meetings and they're shrinking in size. But also there's quite a bit of contract work still underway. And once we finish budget, I don't know if we're gonna see any of these other contract projects finished by April. But it just does make sense to at least jump along to June, where we maybe will see the results of this other batch of contracted services. Partnership work being done, whatever else is in the hopper right now. And then August, if you just skip another one, August makes sense, summer, so. Yeah, I think we'll have a much better sense of where all this contract work and grant work is going in June, so.
I will speak to it.
Okay.
Paris is back, sorry. Okay, that's just.
All right, Director Watson.
Well, and I think we're already doing this, but the Goat River Watershed is a good example where we had at the executive noted it was up forward and we had indicated at CVSC, please bring everything to CVSC in advance. So wherever we can do that with CSLAC items, I think I keep calling it RMAC and RMCAC. Yeah, or CAC. Until we can go to the transit committee, that might be the main thing we're doing here. So the rest of it seems to be in other committees, and if not, see if it does naturally fit with another committee. So if we need to get an update, and if not, forward. I'm just not as relaxed as Vandenberg on discussion.
All right, anything further, on this last piece of business? Looking on the screen, I'm not seeing none. Gonna call a question. All in favor? And those opposed? I am not seeing none. It is carried. All right, it is public time. We will wait a moment for anyone who is online who wishes to address the board or the committee rather. Please feel free to do so and unmute and ask your question going twice. Third time. Thank you and call for adjournment. Thank you. All right.
You have to call for opposition.
Do not.
I'd like to stay. Good work.
You guys think I do this for a while?
Put in a research.
I think we can.
Thursday.